This is Gornergrat, and it has the highest hotel in Switzerland. The only way to get here is by train, and that's my kind of destination. So when I noticed that there was a last-minute discount at this hotel, I knew I had to book it, and that just left me to figure out how I was going to get there. Thankfully, one of the things I love about living in Europe is how easy it is to travel to interesting places without spending a lot of time and money to get there. The places I lived in Canada, even the nicer ones, were surrounded by car-centric urban sprawl in every direction. And all of those beautiful outdoor places you might associate with Canada were only accessible with long and ludicrously expensive flights and/or hours and hours of driving and traffic. So I really appreciate the fact that living in Amsterdam, I can get to most destinations in a day, or even better, while I sleep, by taking a night train. My son had a week off school, and after booking the hotel at Gornergrat, I started looking for a night train to Zurich. And this brings me to one of the only things I hate about night trains in Europe. There aren't nearly enough of them, so they're almost always full whenever I want to travel. There used to be a lot more night trains, but with the rise of artificially low-cost air travel in the 90s, almost all rail carriers stopped running sleeper cars. Don't you love it how airlines aren't required to charge VAT on their tickets and they don't pay tax on their fuel, but the railways do charge VAT and also need to pay tax on their fuel and electricity? Yeah, that's great. But over the past few decades, there has been a huge renewed interest in night trains as Europeans are looking for more climate-friendly methods of travel. Plus, they've likely become tired of being herded like sheep through airports and charged for every possible part of the journey that used to be included in the regular price. So there have been a bunch of railways that have restarted night train service, and even some new night train startup companies. But unfortunately, it takes time to buy new rolling stock and to start up new train routes, so for now, there aren't nearly enough night trains available to meet demand. So, long story short, I booked the night train for the way home, but to get there, I booked the cheapest flight to Switzerland, which turned out to be Geneva. Unfortunately, the cost for the flight plus a hotel in Geneva was twice as much as the night train would have been, but anyway, I really can't wait for Europe to get more night trains. Ultimately, it didn't really matter which city we flew into because it's easy to get anywhere in Switzerland by train. The Swiss may not have the high-speed train network of Japan, but what they do have is extremely reliable and predictable service. The trains here consistently run on time and they have integrated timetables so that the average wait for a connection is about 8 minutes. And I have a previous video about the Swiss train network if you want to learn more details. Our ultimate destination was Gornergrat, which has the highest hotel in Switzerland at 3,100 meters of elevation. You might recognize this location if you watched the Nebula show Jetlag the Game, where it was the end location for Adam and Michelle in season 15. The only way to get here is by train, specifically the Gornergrat Railway from Zermatt, which is a low-car town that is also only accessible by train. I absolutely love coming to Zermatt, and I have a previous video about it on Nebula. I'll leave a link in the description. But this time was a little bit different, as the reason this hotel had a discount is because the train to Zermatt was closed for maintenance. We could take the train as far as Visp station, which was of course uneventful and arrived right on time. And we waited for our replacement service, which turned out to be a pretty nice coach bus. So our ride up to Zermatt wasn't nearly as quick or comfortable as the train, but this bus was about as good as it gets as an alternative. We then had a one-stop train ride into Zermatt and walked across the low-car street to the Gornergrat Railway station. This railway line is really interesting. It climbs almost 1,500 meters in elevation, and there are several stops along the way that provide access to skiing and hiking trails. Even better was that there were new trains since the last time I was here. These new units were put into service in 2022, and they're very spacious and comfortable, with nice big windows providing a stunning view of the countryside and mountains, including the most famous Swiss mountain of them all, the Matterhorn. The Gornergrat Railway first opened in 1898, and it was an electric railway right from the start. Interestingly, this railway uses three-phase power, like what is used for long-run transmission lines, which means that it has 2 overhead lines instead of 1, with the third phase being provided by the rails. 3-phase AC induction motors were all the rage in the late 1800s, but they're a particularly good fit for a steep railway like this one because they're easy to design for regenerative braking. These trains run their motors as generators on the way down the mountain, and 3 trains going down generate about enough electricity for 2 trains to go up. Like many steep mountain railways in Switzerland, this is a rack railway, which means there is a toothed rail in between the tracks. There are various different kinds of rack railways in use around the world, but the Gornergrat Railway uses the apt rack system with 2 rows of toothed rails. Pretty clever for a system that was originally designed in 1882. At the last station, there is one of the original locomotives from the 1800s, now painted gold. It's so cute and little. But I'm glad they have the much larger modern trains today. Our hotel was also here, just a short walk or elevator ride from the station, and our room had a fantastic view of the Matterhorn. The food at the restaurant was great, which is just as well, because when we visited, the Gornergrat Railway stopped running at around 5 o'clock, so we couldn't eat dinner anywhere else. But one of the coolest things about this hotel is that it's also an observatory. The observatory was built on top of the hotel in the 1960s, and it was in use for scientific research until about 15 years ago. Today, it's used by school children in Switzerland to learn about astronomy and to take photos of astronomical objects that they're interested in, which is so cool. Normally, the telescope is operated remotely and there's no one at the observatory. But the resident astronomer was there the week we visited, which was half the reason we wanted to go here in the first place. And while it was unfortunately too cloudy to use the telescope at night, we were able to get a tour of it during the day. It was great to see the equipment they use and to watch the observation dome open. The other great part about Gornergrat is that it's surrounded by hiking trails with all different lengths and levels of difficulty. And most of them have a stunning view of the Matterhorn while you're hiking. A popular route is to walk from Gornergrat down towards Zermatt, and then make your way to one of the intermediate stops on the railway, depending on how far you want to hike. It's so great to have outdoor activities that are easily accessible by public transit. We really lucked out with the weather as well, because the days we were hiking were cool with clear skies, but the last day was the first snow of the season, which was absolutely beautiful, but the hiking trails would have been treacherous. We only stayed in Gornergrat for a few days, but it was really great, and I'm so glad we could plan a trip here at the last minute. When it was time to leave, we took the Gornergrat Railway back down to Zermatt and continued on to Zurich, which was uneventful, and all of our trains arrived on time because, of course they did. It's Switzerland. We spent a day touring around Zurich and riding trams, of course, before heading to the Hauptbahnhof to catch our night train, only to get to the platform right as the nightjet train was leaving the station, because this was the train to Hamburg. There were actually several night trains leaving for different cities, which was great to see. But about 15 minutes before departure, our night train pulled into the station, and I was kinda disappointed to see that it was one of their old trains. OBB has been rolling out newer nightjet rolling stock, including these cool-looking capsule rooms, but unfortunately, I've never had a chance to ride in one. Nevertheless, our room, while several decades old, was still very comfortable. Night trains in Europe leave in the evening and arrive in the early morning, so you pretty much just get on board and immediately go to sleep. So there weren't any lounge cars or really anything else worth visiting. If you want to see a video about a 24-hour train ride I took in Canada, I'll leave a link in the description. Our room was very typical for a European night train. There was a seat and a table, with 2 more seats available after folding up the bottom bed. It has sink area with a mirror and some basic storage, a coat closet, and some space above where we could store our luggage. And there was a detachable ladder that we could use to get to the top bunks. We were also given a couple of goodie bags that had typical amenities like slippers, sleep mask, earplugs, and water. There was no toilet in our room, but there were 2 shared restrooms at the end of the hall. Back in our room, the beds had reading lights, which I wish I had noticed earlier because I would have laid down facing the other way. But whatever, I wasn't here to read, I was here to sleep, and shortly after departure, we went to bed. And I slept really well. The bed was comfortable and I didn't hear any noise from any of the other cabins. I always sleep well on night trains though. Maybe it's because of the soft rocking of the train as it sails through the countryside. In the morning, they brought our complimentary breakfast, which we had ordered the night before. Shortly after breakfast, we arrived in Amsterdam Centraal, albeit about 15 minutes late, and we caught a tram back home. Night trains are such a great way to travel. They combine transportation and a hotel, which makes them very cost-effective, and the whole experience is so much more relaxing than dealing with airports. I can't wait for more night train operators to start offering service to more destinations in Europe, ideally in time for my next last-minute vacation idea. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to learn more about another great train in Switzerland, I made a previous video about this train, the Glacier Express. Billed as the slowest express train in the world, the Glacier Express takes an 8-hour scenic route from Zermatt to St. Moritz. And that video is available on Nebula. In case this is your first time hearing about it, Nebula is a creator-owned streaming service that isn't built to make giant profits for venture capitalists or big tech. And we're funded by fans, not advertisers, which is why Nebula can afford to support creators and give them a platform to make the videos they want to make. When you sign up to Nebula, you not only get early access to all of my videos, ad-free and sponsor-free, but also the videos from over 200 other talented creators, as well as Nebula Originals, special shows and documentary films that are only available on Nebula. If you share our vision for a better video platform, then I'd encourage you to try Nebula. If you sign up at the link go.nebula.tv/notjustbikes, you'll support this channel financially and get 50% off an annual subscription. And if you're not quite sure, Nebula has a 3-day free trial. 3 days isn't enough time to watch all of the great content on Nebula, but we dare you to try. They do have a 2x speed option. Nebula also has gift cards, and my Dutch viewers would be glad to know you can buy them with Ideal. Thanks to everyone who supports this channel on Nebula, on Patreon, or even here on YouTube by watching this video all the way through to the end. I appreciate it.